Dreams. We're all born with them. Dreams of adventure, of finding a sense of purpose, meaning, of reaching our full potential. And wherever your dreams take you, your journey starts with UAC.
I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Hello and welcome to Let's Chat. We're here today to talk with our university panellists about study options at regional universities. Today, our panellists are from CSU, Katie Freelib, Marketing Coordinator, Student Recruitment and Engagement. From UNE, we have Aurora Howland, Schools Liaison Officer. From Southern Cross University, we have Ellen Fleeton. She is the Future Students Officer. From the University of Newcastle, Carla Ingu, Student Recruitment and Engagement Officer. And from the University of Wollongong, Emily Laycock, Domestic Recruitment Coordinator. So welcome to them, and I thank them very much for coming and sitting on our panel today and being able to talk freely about what's on offer at their universities so that students can make some really informed decisions. So let's start with our questions. And this one's going to go to Aurora from UNE. Can you tell us the benefits of studying at a regional university, please, Aurora?
Absolutely. So apart from, I guess, the fact that you are studying a degree with one of us, the benefits of being at a regional university often means that you have more face-to-face access to your lecturers, you're in smaller class groups, so you get a bit more of that personalised attention rather than sitting in class groups of upwards of 400 students. You might only be with anywhere from 50 to maybe 150, which is a big difference when you're studying in that adult learning environment. I think one of the other things is that we all have world-class facilities in our regional towns and centres, and the access to those facilities is obviously greater, being that you are with a smaller student cohort on campus with us. So there's definitely a lot of benefits, but they're probably the key ones.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic to know that, you know, you can get that more personalised service, I suppose, from a small or regional institution. In saying that, I know that we have on our panel today Emily from Wollongong, who is and our Newcastle rep, and they are bigger institutions, but we still call them regional. Emily, can you just define, like, is it very similar to, let's say, going to UNE or to Charles Sturt? Are there smaller class sizes, or is it a little bit larger than that?
I think you might find probably in our first year subjects. So a lot of common courses will share first year subjects. So chemistry is a great example. It's across our health sciences, it's across engineering, it's across our science degrees. So when you go into a lecture for those subjects, they can be larger lectures, but that may be upward of 400 people. But when you come into your actual classes where you're going deeper in that knowledge, they're much smaller class sizes, like what you would experience at UNE or at CSU. And we also have extra support classes that you can choose to engage in. So our peer-assisted study sessions, they're smaller classes that you get to participate in. They're run by students that have done that subject the year before and have absolutely aced it. And so they sort of give you tips and share insights on how to get that knowledge into your head and how to succeed in the exams that are coming up later in the year. So yeah, while we might have a bigger student population, you still get that personalised experience here at our campuses as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Okay, so let's move on to Katie from CSU. Can you tell me what facilities your university has? So on campus, what kind of facilities do you have?
I mean, it depends which campus you're at. We have 6 across New South Wales, but all of our campuses have residential accommodation, and then it will just depend on which course is offered at that campus. So, for example, Wagga, we offer agriculture and veterinary sciences amongst other courses. So there we have, veterinary clinical centre, we'll have an on-campus farm, and we'll have a lot of facilities that those students can use. Whereas at our Albury campus, which offers allied health, we'll have our community engagement and wellness centre and a lot of our labs and physiology kind of spaces for those students to use.
So although, like, say, for instance, you're a vet science, you and Sydney are the only ones in New South Wales that have vet science, you would have a very different experience there than you would, say, at Sydney, because the facilities can be a lot different.
Yeah, so it's a huge campus at Wagga. I always call it a mini town. It's got, so many different facilities, a whole equine centre, a whole on-campus farm, as I mentioned, that our ag students will use, but also our vet students will get to go and use so that they get that experience between smaller and big animals.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole host of different placements that they'll do as well. So 10 clinical placements plus more, and they could be on campus and then also off campus. So we have a lot of different networks within the regional areas so that they can get that hands-on experience there.
Yeah. So Ellen from Southern Cross, you're a smaller institution as well. At your university, the facilities, I mean, I expect that every university would have libraries on campus and things like that, but do you have clubs and things as well, similar to that of the bigger universities?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're talking about student life, clubs and society type of thing, Trudy? Yeah, absolutely. So depending on what campus you're on, you'll find different clubs and societies. So students can apply through the student associations for funding. So if there's a club or society, it might be a Quidditch club. I think there was one of those at UNE years ago. If there's something that you're really interested in, there's actually a pool of money there that students can apply for. So we've had things like Chocolate Lovers Society, where a bunch of students, I think you need 5 students or more to get together and you can create a club or society based on what you're interested in. We at Southern Cross University, we have a surfers club. So up on the Gold Coast campus, people that are really into surfing, and they get some funding to do sort of a day out and things like that on the ocean. We also have a marine watch club. So people down here in Coffs Harbour that are interested in marine science can get out on the boats and do all that fantastic ocean stuff that I know nothing about. And then another big one down here in Coffs Harbour where I am is our Nurses in Midwifery Club. So they run absolutely fabulous professional learning events for the nurses and midwifery students. So yeah, we've got lots of different clubs and societies. So there's the things targeted towards your interests or also what you're studying as well. So that's a huge part of university life and something that we're really proud of at Southern Cross that we have available to all students.
So what I'm actually hearing from all of you is really regional institutions have just as many facilities and of course extra things like clubs and societies that any big university would have. So they're still getting the same sort of experiences, but with a smaller cohort of students that are going through and probably a little bit more personal attention, which would be fantastic for those students who need that extra support. In talking support, Carla from Newcastle, can you just tell me what support programs you would have in place that would help students who have to move away from home and things like that to a regional institution?
Yeah, of course. So I think it's really important that we notice that moving away is a big step for a lot of students, if not all. And at the University of Newcastle, there is plenty of support available, much like all the other universities as well, whether you're a new student or well and truly into your degree. So this can range from academic support, so the one-on-one study sessions, workshops, to personal support such as counselling, financial assistance, and health and welfare advisors as well. And then you also have the trusty IT support, which you will need to reach out to quite often throughout your degree as well. And the support also includes printing as well as technical assistance. And I think a big one as well is security on campus. So Our security staff officers are trained in security, of course, and they can ensure that you can get to your classes, especially if it's after hours as well. They're also trained in wildlife, which is which is what you find is quite important, especially in regional universities, especially our Callaghan campus. We have lots of wildlife here, so they're very well trained. They're trained in first aid and that type of stuff. And should you choose to live on campus, we have our Res Life program, so a group of mentors that can help you when you live on campus. So lots and lots of support. I think the key message is to just reach out.
That's a really good message, because, you know, we do find that, you know, students sometimes get a little bit lost and they're really not sure what to do, and all they've got to do is say help, and I know that there's lots of people around that would do that. In talking about you know, living on campus, Emily from Wollongong, could you just tell me, if a student's going to move away, is it better to live on campus or off campus? You know, what's the difference?
A great question, Charity. And I guess for the individual, they can only really answer that themselves. But I think it's important to give them some information about, there's a lot of benefits to actually living on campus in our student accommodation. We like to call it adulting with training wheels. So you make that massive step of moving out of home for the first time, but you have an incredible amount of support here on campus to help you make that transition. And depending on what you're after, so here at UW and each of the universities here would have their own different styles of accommodation. We sort of split it up based on location, and then whether you want to cook for yourself or you want to have us provide your meals for you. So if you are absolutely hopeless at cooking, you can take that stress out of the equation, because we do have catered accommodation on campus. We have residences that are down by the beach, some that are in town in the CBD here in Wollongong, and then those that are on campus. So you can literally wake up 10 minutes before your class, roll out of bed and be at your lecture 2 minutes later. Yeah, like Carla was saying, the Res Life programs at all the universities are really comprehensive, and there's a lot of peer-to-peer support. So while there are big grown-ups like us on campus that are there as support services, there's an interim where there's student leaders, so people that are your peers that have been through that whole process just in the years prior, that can give you guidance and support, and they just keep an eye on you and look out for you while you're making that transition to being the big wide world, taking care of yourself. There's a lot of social support, so they run a heap of different social programs to make sure that you are making friends and settling in, but there's heaps of academic support too, and you find that the students that actually live on campus end up doing on average better academically, because they're in a group that are in that mindset. They get down to and knuckle down and do their homework together. They make sure that they're balancing it out and going and doing other activities as well. It's just a really all-round great experience. Every student that lives on Res here absolutely raves about that experience, even if they just stay for a year and then move off campus afterwards. Everything's sort of inclusive. So while you might look at renting a house in the city or town that you're looking at studying, and the weekly cost of that might be a little bit less than what you're looking at in terms of fees for student accommodation, but you don't have to deal with landlords, rental contracts. Most of your furniture is provided. You just bring all your little personalised bits and pieces, but it's also all the extra stuff, all that support that you get, the security, all the things that all the stresses that are taken away, because everything's inclusive and you're right there on campus.
Aurora from UNE, would your university be same? I would expect everyone has the same sort of opinions, but it'd be nice to hear from a smaller institution, I suppose.
Yeah, so we've got all the same access to support services. We've got free medical and psychological services on campus as well. So if you are feeling under the weather, or if you're feeling a bit stressed and you just need to talk to somebody that you don't have to see again, you've got that access there as well, which I think is really important. That transition from school to university, whether you've had a gap year and worked or you've gone straight from school, it can be really, really tough. And especially if you're moving like quite far away from home, we get students who live in college with us who are from Armidale, and then we get students who are from as far as Darwin and Adelaide and stuff. So the network that you have is super important. So you need to remember that you're with a group of people who are all in the same boat. So whilst your experience is unique, everybody else is probably also feeling the same. So there's definitely no judgment or anything like that for seeking out those services. And that's why we provide them, because we want students to do their best, and you can only do your best if you're feeling well, you know, mentally and physically. So I think the academic support is just as important as those pastoral care.
Yeah, I think that whole, you know, stress and getting help and what have you is a really big issue. You know, living away from home can be stressful because, you know, you don't have your support systems that you normally would. So I would urge every student who's, you know, moving away to go to university, which I personally think is a great opportunity for students to not just learn and do their degree, but also to grow as a person. But, you know, really reach out to your support systems at the institutions, because, you know, it can really help you settle in, I think.
Trudy, I was just going to add to that, because we've spoken about the support services that are there for those that are living on campus, but I had first-hand experience. It's my one regret from uni was not living on campus. I moved in with family when I moved away, and my brother, I shouldn't say family, that sounds like I was going to be taken care of by them, my brother, who was just as hopeless as me. And I ran into all sorts of issues with the rental property that we were in. A pipe exploded, apartment flooded. The real estate wasn't being great about helping us. There's actually help on campus too, so if you're in that situation. So whether you're living on campus with us or you're in your own sort of rental arrangements off campus, there are support staff there that can help you negotiate those situations as well. And I wasn't aware of that. I didn't reach out for help, and so struggled through that one a little bit myself, and I wish I had have known. So all of these things, if you're not sure, just ask. Start somewhere. Someone will find someone that can help you with your particular situation and will give you a hand.
Yeah, that's really, I think that's really great that there are those supports, because as I said before, and as you've all said, it can really, you know, can really help a student settle and understand, you know, what goes on at the university level, but also help them along their own journey, which is great. I think we're going to turn some of our attention now to actually getting into uni. And Carl, I'm going to talk to you from Newcastle. One of the questions we get here at UAC is, oh, look, the selection rank for those courses is not as high as some of the universities in the city. Does that mean that the course isn't as competitive or what have you? Can you just sort of talk me through that? Because we all know that the selection rank for these courses is all about supply and demand. But can you give me your take on entry and how competitive it is?
Yes, so you've sort of explained it a bit there, where it does depend. It doesn't mean that the courses are not as good as other universities that have higher selection ranks, or the lower selection ranks not as good as other universities. It's definitely not the case. It is a case of supply and demand. But nevertheless, there are lots of different pathways to get into university, and the selection rank isn't the only way.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. There is, of course, lots of other pathways into universities, as we've said. Let's say a student wants to get into a course at your uni, okay? It's competitive. What would be the pathways in if they don't get into that course?
Yeah.
What would you suggest?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different options. So like I said before, I think throughout your high school life, it's always getting the best ATAR so that you can get into university. But if you don't get the right ATAR, it's not the end of the world. Lots of different ways. So if you didn't complete year 12, for example, or didn't get the marks to get into your dream degree, we have enabling programs, I think, much like other universities. So one of them is a thing called Open Foundation. So it's free as well. And by completing one of these enabling programs, you're actually guaranteed into a range of different degrees offered at the University of Newcastle. So like I said, it's free. It's also flexible. So you can either study full-time or part-time or even online. And it actually gives you the academic skills and strategies, like, for example, how to reference, giving you a head start over other first-year students. So you actually end up doing a lot better than other students. And another similar program that we have is called Your Pug. So this is also free, but this is more sort of designed to help Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students who are 18 years and over. And it's quite similar as well, and it's free. And it also, again, gives you that academic skills to give you a head start over the first year students, which is fantastic. So those are enabling programs. But another way as well is through degree transfers. So we talked about selection ranks, and sometimes they're really, really high. So what you can do is you can do a degree transfer. So if you don't get the marks required for your dream degree, but you can get in with a lower selection rank. So let's use nursing. I don't know about the other universities, but the selection rank for the University of Newcastle has gone up a bit, just simply because it's so competitive. So you can apply for a degree with a lower selection rank, for example, a science degree perhaps, accept this offer, do well in your first year, and then transfer over. And you can even pick subjects that are similar to nursing. So you get credits for those. So credit is very important. So you're not repeating too many things. And you also don't need to restudy. So then when you transfer to the following year, you've already done some of those subjects as well. And once you're in university, we don't look at your selection rank anymore. So it's easy as just transferring over as long as you get the right marks for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Katie, talking about, courses that students might want to take on if they don't get into the desired degree. Vet science is a big thing, and we get lots of questions about it. Apart from benefits, which you've already talked about, and the facilities and things like that you have at Wagga for vet science, if a student doesn't get in the first instance, what would you suggest that they do? What would be the best sort of pathway for them?
Yeah, so there's always a way to get there. It's just that it might take a little bit longer than they first envisioned. And at the end of the day, uni is so much fun. So a little bit longer doesn't really matter. We don't have one particular pathway course, but we do find that a lot of students will start in a Bachelor of Animal Science or a Bachelor of Veterinary Technology, or perhaps even a Bachelor of Equine Science. So they're kind of 3 courses within the same field, and they will have a lot of subjects that overlap with our veterinary science, at least in the first year. So they might start in that course, and then they might apply again at the end of that year to go into vet. And that means they're a little bit more mature. They might have a bit more experience, and they might know what to expect in the interview at the end of the year. And they've also spent time with the students that are currently studying vet. So they have that kind of upper hand as well. So technically, you can get in from studying any degree. It's not, restricted to those, and it's not restricted to courses at Charles Sturt University either. But we do find that that's what most students prefer to do.
And do they get lots of hands-on work experience, I expect?
Yeah, definitely. So definitely in our veterinary course, but also in most of our other courses at Charles Sturt as well. So that's starting with hands-on experience within, the labs and the facilities we have on campus, but then moving out into, if it's vet, little veterinary clinics. There is one of those on campus, but also external, and then they might move away for months at a time and work on farms or commercial farms or things like that, where there's a lot more veterinary options available. And just so they get that breadth of experience, so that when students graduate, they really can go and do anything.
So they're really not just working with dogs and cats, they're working with, large animals at your university as well, which is fantastic, really. It
Definitely.
Opens up, I would expect, a lot more opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And it shows different areas where students might like to specialize kind of more, and maybe that's not something that they envisioned at the start. I know students that go in and want to do vet, and then they'll actually stay in their maybe Bachelor of Animal Science and go on to do research in parasites, something they never would have expected when they started high school, but it just gives that opportunity to learn more about different things and hear different perspectives and meet different lecturers who are interested in different things as well.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Aurora, UNE. I know I've heard a lot about the fact that there's you do a lot of agribusiness and agriculture type courses. Students that are interested in that kind of field of study, Do they get lots of hands-on work experience and so forth as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, they get everything from, being in the labs on campus to working on one of our 5 farms that we own, to going out into the actual field and working with, whether it's sheep or cattle or they're more into cropping, whatever their interests are, they can go out and work on properties. And I think the beauty of our courses is that we do offer them fully online as well. So students are able to actually go off work. Hopefully they have internet access. Some don't on some of their larger properties, so they have to drive a few k's up the road, download all their stuff and go back home. But they do find that it works. Obviously they can't attend class every day if they're working 5-6 hours away.
Yeah.
But yeah, the opportunities are there. I have heard our lecturers tell students that someone who finishes a degree in agronomy, so agriculture, animal science, that kind of area, for every one person that graduates, there's 5 jobs waiting for them. So it is a really growing field. So having that hands-on access definitely makes people more desirable to employers, but also gives them a bit more insight into how things work. Like Katie said, they might realise that they're actually not interested in going back to the family sheep farm and they want to go work growing cotton or something like that. So definitely is helpful to work out exactly where you want to be.
Yes. Well, that's right, and that's where university really sort of broadens your knowledge, your horizons, and lets you explore all sorts of different things, which is fantastic. I'm going to now pass over to Ellen from Southern Cross. What I want to ask you, Ellen, is if you've got numerous campuses like Charles Sturt, like Wollongong and so on, if a student got into one of your campuses, let's say Coffs Harbour, that's where you are, which I love Coffs Harbour, I'd love to be there. If I got into Coffs Harbour campus, but then decided for whatever reason I needed to move from Coffs Harbour, could I transfer easily over to one of your other campuses? How does that work?
Absolutely. So that's something we see a lot with where we're located, I guess, on that part of the coast, that students do tend to move around a little bit, whether they grew up in Coffs Harbour and want to start off here, and then maybe after they've got a year of study under their belt, they want a bit more of a city experience and move to the Gold Coast, things like that. So yes, our students do move around a little bit, which is great. It is usually quite a simple process to change locations. The biggest thing to consider is the course that you're in. So if you're studying nursing, for example, that is offered on all 3 of our campuses, whereas something more specialised like marine science isn't offered on all 3 of our campuses due to the facilities that are required. So a lot of our health courses are offered across all 3 locations and online. Same with education as well. That's offered on all 3 campuses and online. So if you're in one of those degrees, it's a very simple process to change location. Sometimes it's as simple as sending an email, and other times you can actually do it yourself in your enrolment system, where you just literally would select Lismore instead of Coffs Harbour when you're enrolling. And then again, for those more specialised degrees, depending on the facilities and placement requirements, you might just need to check that there is a spot for you. But yes, happens every day. It's quite simple and easy as long as that course is offered where you're moving to. And then I guess the great thing about all of our universities, even though we are regional, is that we're offering more and more in that online space. So if you were to say start a degree in Lismore and then move to Northern Territory, you might be lucky enough to be able to complete that with us online. So that happens a lot too. Just because we're regional, that's still definitely an option as well.
Okay, great. That's great. I mean, the online thing these days, most universities, because of COVID, have turned to a lot of that online learning. But I do know, like with Charles Sturt, who's my own university way back then, and UNE and Southern Cross, you do offer a lot of online courses where it's just totally online. So, I mean, that's always an option for students as well. And it's slightly different experience, but of course, I know that you do offer lots of online, which is great for those students who are, not wanting to move away from home, but want something a little more, personalised, I suppose, in some respect. What I want to ask now, and for most of you, or for all of you, you have early entry schemes. A lot of you, you apply through schools recommendation schemes through UAC, but some of you don't. So, or you have additional entry schemes. I'm going to go around to each one of you. So we'll start with Carla from Newcastle. Apart from schools recommendation schemes, do you have any other early entry schemes that are a direct application that you might want to talk about?
So with the schools recommendation scheme, obviously you go through UAC, but we also have this thing called the Year 12 Subject Spotlight. But that's just you putting the University of Newcastle as your first preference. So there's no additional application. You just have to put us as your first preference. And basically the Year 12 Subject Spotlight is where you do well in just one subject. So you just get a particular band in one subject, not all subjects. And if it's related to the degree that you've chosen, we go and look, okay, hey, they want to go to the University of Newcastle. They want to study engineering. They've done well in one of these subjects that's required for engineering. Let's give them an early offer at the University of Newcastle. So that's another really great one that it appeals to a lot of students.
And when do those offers go out?
So that's just a bit before December, the usual UAC, where the HR release, yeah.
Okay. Katie, does Charles Sturt have any additional early entry schemes that students might need to know about?
Yeah, we do. So we definitely encourage students to go through SRS and what we call the Charles Sturt Advantage. So this is an early offer program based on Year 11 results and soft skills. So we found that employers really like students that had those technical skills, obviously, but they also really value students that have the communication skills and emotional intelligence and resilience, ability to speak to clients or patients or whoever they're working with. So we wanted to give students an opportunity to get in based on excelling in those areas. So it's a short application based on 3 questions around empathy, resilience, and a motivation to create a world worth living in, which is our motto here. So that's a really great program. We've got 2 rounds this year. Students can get an early offer in late June or in late September, and then they're admitted into a really exciting exclusive program for them as well, where they'll get extra assistance in helping with studying, but then also invited to on-campus events. They get some really cool merch, and everyone loves the free hoodies. So things like that are really great for them too.
Fantastic, thanks. Aurora, to you, UNE.
Yes, so yeah, again, SRS, you'll see us in there. That's pretty straightforward, but we have a free direct application to us. It's called Early Entry, so nice and simple, so you can't forget it. But the process itself, like I said, it's free and direct to us, so you don't need to pay any additional fees. You just head to our website, type in Early Entry, and from there you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and you can choose up to 3 courses. So in that program, nearly all our courses are offered. So things like medicine obviously aren't offered, but pharmacy, biomedical science, nursing, law, business, agriculture, all our arts and humanities subjects, they're all offered through that, and our teaching programs as well. We do have a couple listed in there. So it's a really great way for students to get that entry to university. It's not based on your ATAR, it's not based on previous results, it's purely based off your school's recommendation. So your ability to work and learn independently if your school thinks you're ready for university. It is a guaranteed offer scheme, so and that's not that you'll get the thing that you apply for necessarily. If your school thinks that you might be better suited to start in a pathways program, or let's say you've applied for a science program to study at university, but you've not done science in Year 12. Whilst it's not based on the results, it is based off, having that interest and having that previous study. So we might put you in something like our scientific studies degree, or maybe our pathways enabling course. So you will get an offer. It just depends on what that might be. And the offers come out in mid-November, so it's usually a week after the HSC. So you still need to try, still need to do well in the exams. That's very important. But it is an alternative entry pathway into us. And you can study online or on campus with those offers as well. And most courses, they will allow you to defer for 1 or 2 years. Things like nursing can't be deferred, but pretty much everything else has that ability as well. So that's us.
Fantastic. One of the sentences you said, which I absolutely love, is students should certainly concentrate and do as well as they possibly can in the HSC, even if they've applied for early entry where it's based on other things, because at the end of the day, you just never know. And students change their minds all the time. So it is really important for students to put in as much effort as they possibly can in those HSC exams.
And for
Emily?
things sorry.
Sorry. Go.
I was just going to say, for these types of direct programs, the school needs to see you trying. Like that's what it's based off. They need to see that you're trying. So if you're like, well, I'm guaranteed an offer, and you give up, it's not going to be the offer you want. So
no, and you'd be amazed at the number of students that come to UAC at the end and say, well, hey, what am I going to do? Because, you know, I got in an early entry and I decided I didn't want that. And, you know, my ATAR's not very good and I can't get into anything. But it's you know, they've still got to work. They've still got to put the effort in, because when they go to university, you know, as I say to students, it's like doing the HSC every semester. You've got all these assessments and exams at the end. So they've really got to, you know, school is really just preparing students, of course, to go on to tertiary education if that's their pathway. It's not like school finishes and something magic happens and everything gets done for you at uni. Emily, you, early entry.
Wonderful. I was just going to say on that, it's something that I always bring up with the students when I'm talking about our early admission program, is that getting the offer is the first step, but there's so many other opportunities that are tied in with your year 12 results that if you take your foot off the pedal and just let it all go in that last part of the year, you miss out on those. There's scholarships that are tied to your results. There's actually job opportunities here on campus that are tied into how well you, or have like a base level of how well you've done at school. So it's important to keep those things in mind. We've been really lucky. We haven't really experienced that. We find that when they get their offer, it usually just relieves that stress of going into the exams. And so they end up doing better than what they probably anticipated, but definitely we have to remind them every year to keep that in mind. So UOW's early entry program is called UOW Early Admission. We don't participate in the SRS. Our only early entry program is early admission. It's an online application that opens in July and closes on the 13th of August this year. So you've got 4 weeks to complete an online application. It's based on your year 11 results. So it's allowing you to be rewarded for the work that you've done so far, but also looks at what we call the 4 indicators of success. So we've been running our early entry program for well over 20 years now, and we did a heap of research and found that these 4 key areas, if you showed strengths in those, that's evidence that you will succeed at university. And that's what we're looking for. We're not trying to make it harder for you. We just want to make sure that you're set up to succeed when you get here. Yeah. So those 4 areas are academic readiness, they are communication and collaboration, motivation and passion, and planning and persistence. So we asked you to answer 4 questions relating to those key areas, and you put whatever information you possibly can, and it gives us as an idea of where your strengths lie in those areas, and we can reward you based on that. I think Aurora wrapped it up beautifully the way that the university will work through options for you as well. So if you're not eligible for the degree that you've applied for, sometimes that can be because your marks weren't up to scratch. Sometimes it's just because it's so competitive for that particular course, but we'll endeavour to sort of offer you something else. So it could be an alternate degree that can act as a pathway, or it can be an enabling program or a diploma. We're lucky enough to have the UOW College here, so we can offer you a diploma program, which is the exact same first year as doing the bachelor itself, but you have this extra support, again, making sure that you are academically ready enough to go on and take on that study independently. So it's a really, really good way to get in. And early admission allows us to factor all that information in, as opposed to just working off just your ATAR at the end of the year. So it's definitely worthwhile checking out each of the programs and applying for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also help you.
You say, you know, students could just apply for all 5 of your early entry schemes, as well as SRS and anything else that they wanted to apply, which, you know, means that they've got lots of opportunity. Ellen, Southern Cross, tell us about your early entry. Star, is it?
It is, yes, STAR. So it's called STAR Early Offer. It's actually how I got into university. So I feel like I can talk to this pretty well. So it's similar to what the other ladies have mentioned. So basically we open on the 28th of April, so quite soon. You apply online. It doesn't take very long at all. It's basically just your personal details and what course you're interested in that you need to put in. And then what we do is we work really closely with the schools to get that recommendation and advice about what would suit the student best. So there's 3 different levels to our STAR entry. So the first one is STAR Platinum. So that means you come into us really highly recommended from your school and you're doing really well with your grades. And attached to STAR Platinum is lots of different opportunities. So scholarships, job opportunities, mentoring, lots of different fantastic opportunities, because we recognise that you're a high performer and we're really happy to have you here. So that's a really good one. And then there's the STAR entry, which is basically you asked to do a Bachelor of Nursing, your school said yes, you'd be absolutely fabulous at that, then we can make you an offer to a Bachelor of Nursing. The important thing to note is that our offers come out in November as well, so after the HSC results. So absolutely echo what everyone said, do your absolute best and don't see early entry as a, you know, to tick all boxes. You need to really still strive and achieve in that year 12 space. And then we also have the STAR pathway. So if you've applied for something like law and we think, oh, we would love to have you, but unfortunately we don't think that you would be in the right space to get started in such a competitive and rigorous degree. So we will offer you an entry into the university. So that could be a diploma, like what Emily talked about, or one of our transition or preparation courses, which are all completely free. They prove that you are going to be successful. If you can get through that course, you can get through anything, basically. They're really good. I call them boot camps because they get you ready to study at university. So they're the 3 different sort of tiered levels of our STAR program, and that opens on the 28th of April, and that's completely separate to SRS and it's free to apply. So yeah, as you said, Trudy, students could potentially put one in at all 5 of the institutions here today, as well as their UAC preferences, which is really, really cool if you want to be strategic about your future and try and get as many offers as you can. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll stay with you at the moment. Could you, and this is for students and their parents who might be listening, just give us some information that will help them make some really informed choices about studying at a regional university, and what is it that, you know, something, a highlight from your university that they can take away with them today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for any student considering university, the best thing to do is actually go out and visit that place. You could be living hours and hours away from a university campus and you could get your offer for your dream degree and then get to that location and go, oh, this is not what I expected. I don't feel comfortable here. It's just not me. So my biggest advice to anyone in year 12 or any parents is do a road trip and go and see the place, because you wouldn't buy a house without inspecting it. You wouldn't move somewhere in any other sort of situation in life without knowing the location. So I would go and visit those campuses and trust your gut instinct of going, oh, I feel really comfortable here. The people are friendly. I really, really like it. Or yeah, as I said, you might have this, you know, absolute goal of where you've wanted to be, and then you go and visit and go, no, that's not for me. I'm looking for something smaller, or I'm looking for something completely different. So that would be my number one piece of advice. And I guess the thing that stands out for me about Southern Cross University, and it's probably similar for all the regional universities, is the people. The people make your experience. They can make or break it. I moved 8 hours away from home for university, and I got there and thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And it was the absolute best thing ever, because you meet lifelong friends, you meet people who are on the same path as you, who have the same interests, and it's just such a wonderful time in your life where I liked what Emily said, you've got your training wheels on still. So you're in that wonderful in-between time, and the people that are around you are so important because they are really formative years. So yeah, I would say trust your gut about the location and the setting, and also the people. You want to meet good people and be surrounded by good people to really thrive and enjoy that experience, because it is the best experience I've ever had. So yeah, it's so exciting for parents and kids to be going off on that journey. So yeah, they're my 2 big pieces of advice.
And of course, at Southern Cross, you offer all array of degrees, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
They've got, wide opportunities, just as many opportunities at Southern Cross as they would have at any large university, yes?
Absolutely. And the good thing too about a regional university is, like, we have so many specialised and interesting courses, but also when you're studying those degrees, you're often being taught by experts in the field, which is something that I really love about Southern Cross. And you're also, because you're in a smaller group, there's so many more opportunities. So you're probably getting the same level of education and research and facilities and support as you would at a bigger university. You're actually in a smaller cohort of students, which is fantastic when you get out into the workplace, because you might have done a marketing degree and then you end up in an agency where, the board member was one of your lecturers, and your PA is someone who's in the degree now, and then your associate is someone you studied alongside. So in my job, I work with careers advisors, and 2 of the careers advisors in our area are people I studied with at Southern Cross. So it is that community. There's more opportunity, there's network, there's support. So I think that's something that's really important, no matter where you choose to study, that, the regional unis, you're part of a community, and that is really helpful once you are out in the workforce.
Fantastic, Carla. I'm going to go across to you now for Newcastle. Tell me about some highlights and what you think parents and students should know about studying at Newcastle.
Absolutely. I think Ellen brought up that fantastic point where you definitely should take advantage in terms of visiting the university, getting the feel for it as well, because you'll never know. You might move across, the country, and then all of a sudden realize, okay, this is not the spot for me. But also I would suggest to take advantage of the resources and events that all universities have. Such as open days. So this year, the University of Newcastle has gone back to face-to-face open days, which is fantastic. So then you can check that out, and then you can visit different booths for different courses and have a chat to the academics. And often at those booths as well, they're actual students. So you can ask about the degree, ask what it's about. So definitely take advantage of those resources as well. Attending these UAC webinar panels, another fantastic resource. Chatting to university staff, and visiting the website as well, looking through the degrees page. Often the degrees page have a lot of information about the degree, but it also talks about what your potential career pathways are, and also what the course actually entails. And often enough, sometimes students go in there and go, oh, that's not actually what I want to do. So that's why I think that's a fantastic resource. Another one that we have at the University of Newcastle is called a student access platform. Where you can actually, it's kind of like a chat function where you can actually chat to the students that are currently studying at the university and ask them questions, whether it's specific to their course or just general university life as well. So plenty of resources all across the board. I think the highlight at the University of Newcastle for us is one, of course, the people and the community feel. We're close to beaches, which is usually a big positive for a lot of students that may live a little bit further away, but also the flexibility with university. You're super flexible. You can hop between campuses as well, because our Callaghan campus is also located close to our Newcastle City campus, where there's a shuttle bus. So a quick trip to the bus, to the city, sorry.
Fantastic. Sounds like you're all on board with the same message, but we're going to go across now to Katie from CSU, and you can tell us about the highlights and what you think parents and students really need to know about you.
Yeah, so definitely would be echoing Carla and Ellen. But I think a big one we probably need to talk about is the cost of living at regional universities is often a lot lower. And I know that can be a big hurdle for students that are looking to move away. Often you might be saving up during a part-time job during high school and then going to university. And that's just a really big thing. Accommodation being cheaper, it being easier to get a part-time job, those type of things is a really good thing about regional universities and Charles Sturt. And, you know, like Ellen said about all the people is really important, and that if you know your lecturers and you're living on accommodation, perhaps you do get that really good sense of community, and that's really supportive, but it's also just really fun and really good for networking too. So whether that means while you're still in your course and maybe you're looking for a specific type of work placement, or whether it's when you're graduating and you're looking for a job. So sense of community, cost of living lower, and just one more thing, Charles Sturt is the first carbon neutral university campus in Australia. So we do really pride ourselves on sustainability, and we know that's really important to students and parents as well. So that's just a major aspect of studying at Charles Sturt too.
Fantastic, thanks for that. And we'll go to Aurora from UNE.
Yeah, ditto everybody. I think the access that students get at a regional university, especially somewhere like UNE, where we have around 4,000 on-campus students, that is quite a small number. So 80% of our students study via distance education. We are the longest provider of distance education in Australia. So a lot of our students do study from, an hour away from Armidale up to across the country to around the globe. So the on-campus experience is very unique, not only compared to city universities, but also compared to just other students who've gone to UNE. I think everywhere I've gone, I've met somebody who has a connection to UNE, and most of them have studied in both capacities. They started on campus, then they moved to online. So I think that flexibility is important as well to look at. I also like to say that, and we talked about it before with alternate entry pathways, but the ATAR is just one pathway in. It's a very important pathway in, but this year you're working towards that number and you're hoping to get that number. But at the end of the day, if that's just not how it works out, that's absolutely fine. I will probably assume correctly, most of us didn't get in on ATAR. We probably all got in via some alternate entry pathway. And that is the, growing experience of students. But yeah, the message is the same, I think, with all of us. Smaller classes, more access to student support. So that's important for parents to note as well. I went to boarding school. I did an overseas gap year, so my mum was quite used to me not being around. But going off into that environment where, often it's co-ed living, you have to fend for yourself a little bit more. There was still that level of concern, and I know parents talk to me all the time about how their child will be looked after, and the fact that you're with a smaller amount of students on campus means that they've got greater access to those support services, but people actually know their name. They notice if they're not there, they notice, if they've withdrawn, or if, they're coming out of their shell even, people are there watching all of that. And because of that smaller cohort, I think that's really important to emphasize to everybody listening. So
fantastic. Okay, Emily, UOW, Wollongong.
Done a wonderful job there, summarising all the benefits. The one thing that I think I would pass on, aside from everything else that everyone said, for students and parents, there's a lot of pressure on Year 12 students to just have it all figured out by the end of this year and get it right. And the reality is that's not how it's going to work. You go with your gut and you work with what you know, and you make decisions based on that. Doing research, going deep, don't get lost in rankings and fancy titles of things. Go and look at the nitty-gritty. Like, go into the course handbook and look at the subjects that you study as a part of that degree. 2 degrees can have the exact same name, but the content can be a little bit different, and that one might suit your needs more than the other. Having a look at the extracurricular stuff that's available at the university, that helps make up your mind between a Bachelor of Nursing somewhere and somewhere else. So I think that's a really good, helpful tip with research. And on that whole thing about having it all figured out, having to commit to something that you're going to do for the rest of your life, The stats for us here at UW, within the first 12 months, about a third of all students will either change their major area of study or their course completely. It is such a normal thing to happen. When you come to university, your world gets cracked wide open. You're exposed to all these different ideas and people and concepts, and you just see the world in a completely different light. So of course, you're going to change, and the things that you're going to want to do are going to change, and we're there to help you do that. We're not going to make it difficult for you. We actually try to help you get to where you want to go. It is about you as an individual and what you need. So just keep that in mind, keep that peace of mind, knowing that we're there to help you. If you change your mind as soon as you start, before you even start, just reach out and talk to us, and we'll help you out there. I think one of the highlights of UW is our where we're located in our natural surrounds, but it is the people and the support that you get, and that we are there for you and what you need, not about what we want to do. And I think you get an immediate sense of that, and probably when you visit all the other campuses as well, of the quality of the people here. And it just makes for a really good experience. When you graduate from uni, the reality is if you're studying commerce or law, you're graduating alongside literally thousands of people around the country with that exact same degree. So what you need to focus on is what's going to set you apart. And I think UW does a wonderful job of creating opportunities for our students that they have great access to because of our smaller population size, but also just the breadth of programs that are available too. It makes uni a lot of fun. It makes you grow and develop during that time, but it also makes you stand out to employers when you come out at the end of your degree too. So that's probably my short summary of it.
Thank you very much for that. Well, today we've listened to our panelists talk about how you should think about regional universities and all the opportunities that are available to students at a regional institution. You know, for students and parents who are thinking, you know, I want to go to university, I'm not really sure on, you know, large communities and large number of students, and am I going to get lost? I think a regional institution is probably better fit for you. Myself, I went to a regional university. I've got a daughter who went to a regional university, and I could not certainly speak about them highly enough. They do a fantastic job, and I think that every student should think, well, you know, if I don't get what I want, you know, there's lots of opportunities anywhere in New South Wales, not just in the big city institutions. I want to thank our panelists for being here today. If you have any inquiries, of course, please contact UAC or one of our institutions. They are all here to help you. Of course, applications have already opened for New South Wales and ACT students and IB students. If you're listening from interstate, please wait until the 1st of August when we have your information for you to be able to apply. The applications are all online. Just need to make sure you get it in. Thanks again, everybody, for your attendance here today. Thanks again for listening. Thank you.
UAC represents many institutions across New South Wales and the ACT. The universities featured in today's webinar are a small selection of the many institutions which offer the courses discussed today. Students should research all university offerings so they can make informed decisions regarding their future study.